Alrighty, this is a simple flower petal tutorial using Niagara inside of Unreal Engine. Pretty simple. Even if you've never opened Niagara, you should be completely fine. If you have a pulse and you can read, you will be okay. So let's get to it. All right, so come on over to your content browser and right click and click on Niagara System. And these are all great. Feel free to mess with them, but we are going to mess with the Niagara emitter. It says it very small right there, of blowing particles, because, and name this really quick, this is most of the heavy lifting already. So if we look at this, it collides with our floor here, and it has a bunch of rotation, and it's moving like it's blowing in the wind, which is most of what we want. So we can double click this again, drag and drop here, and zoom in over here and click on where it says blowing particles right here. You can name this if you want for organization purposes, but it's kind of unnecessary right now. So Niagara's scary. Most of this doesn't mean anything to you, and it doesn't have to mean anything to you. That will be okay. By default, this parameter window will be open, but this is what we are going to mess with so we can have more control and try and get out of this window as quickly as possible so we can go back to pretty tree land. It's gonna be wonderful. So first things first, you might be saying, this is white. I wish it was pink. You can hover over here and scroll down into the details panel, and where it says color mode, direct set color, you can just left click on that and automatically you can see it here. It's a little hard to see because the particles are very small and this viewport is questionable. I have it unlit just to make it like a little bit more visible, but we can click save, go back to the level, and it's like, well, that's kind of it. I'm not really sure what else to do. This is where some fun things come into play. We can click this plus icon and click this, make new, and there's a bunch of things we can select here. And honestly, I don't know what most of them do, but you know what I do know is how to spell color, and type in linear color. This is this. This is this. Come over here and select the name, and let's call it main_color and misspell it immediately. Left click on this color and we'll make this our pink, a little bit more nonchalant pink. So with this selected, we can left click where it says user main_color or whatever you have it called. Hold wherever it's blue here shining, we can drag and drop this color onto that. Color will stay the same, but it will be derived from this value here. So we can click save and you can see, wow, it's still pink. We can go back to our outliner and select our flower petals, and you can see here, this main color, we can mess with it inside of our scene. And now they're teal or blue. And it's like, interesting. I wonder what else we can do with this. Same theory here. You can navigate inside of here with everything, and it can be very overwhelming. Or you can click specifically on spawn rate. You can see that it says 15 right now. So this means over this loop of 5 seconds, by default, it's 5 seconds. It will spawn 15 at a time. For what we need to get this going as quickly as possible, we can very quickly just make this 50. Save, go back to level, and it's like, wow, we have way more petals. So if we think out loud, what is something that can plug in here? Like what kind of number could we drag and drop into here? Because we can't really plug in a color, although technically I think you can because it is a vector. No one cares, no one asked. For this situation, we can type in float, click enter. A float is essentially just a value. That's all we need to know about it for now. It is a number. It's probably more technical than that, but not really. So for this, I'm going to type in spawn rate. By default, it will be 0. Let's change that. Left click where it says user spawn rate, drag and drop onto spawn rate. Go back to your level, and now hover over your flowers. And now we can mess with this value without, good God, this is gonna run so well. We can start running around and we can see our petals going everywhere. This can be confetti, this can be snow, but for now it is our wonderful petals, and it's very pretty. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. It's kind of all you need right now just to get this going as quickly as possible. But for now, I'm going to show you just a little bit more control over this. Having your own material be a little bit more accurate to what a petal looks like versus what is quite literally just a circle. Go back into Niagara and we can left click on Sprite Renderer, and where it says default sprite material in this sprite rendering material spot, we can click the eyeglass folder icon, and that will show you where this material is. What we are going to do is we are going to right click and duplicate this and call it something like m_sprite cranberry. We can drag and drop this into where we made our VFX just for simplicity and move it there. So now we can see what's going on within this material. It's very simple. It's really just a circle with this particle color that kind of controls everything. Kind of all you need. It is a surface for the material domain. Blend mode is additive. The shading model is unlit. So what we can do, if you have a flower petal, I have this petal texture. It's 256 by 256 because VFX, you don't need very high textures. You can even go smaller. I would recommend going smaller, but I cannot describe how little time I spent making this inside of Krita, and it looks like a lemon, but that's okay. I can very quickly recreate what I did just to show you. So what we can do, we can click new image, pixels, width and height. I'm gonna keep it at 256 and click create. So this is not the best way to do it, but it is a way to do it. I'm going to click the fill icon, drag and drop into black. So this means it'll be fully transparent, and anything we paint with white will be opaque. So we can click the brush icon and we'll do a very simple pen, very quickly make a petal, and this will automatically look a little bit better than the default dot. You can move this just in case so it doesn't clip right there, and save this to your desktop, save this to whatever as a PNG, and click and drag that into the content browser. And we have our petal texture. So we can open Sprite Cranberry, go to where our stuff is, and drag and drop petal. We can make this a parameter just by right clicking, and we will call it Sprite Texture. What we are going to do, we are going to get rid of the sphere mask because we don't really need it. We can plug this RGB of the sprite texture into the B, into our opacity, and we can also add a multiply and put that into the B, and the output of this lerp into the A of our multiply, and plug that into emissive color. So now go back to Niagara, and where it's a sprite renderer, we can manually type in our material that we just made, call it Sprite Cranberry, and things are still looking pretty spicy. Click save, back to your level, and if you look closely, we have our petal, and it looks like a petal. This is great. Like that, make it pink, like a Barbie pink. Hi Barbie. And you can see this is pretty much what we got going on. But we know not all leaves are created equally. Some are prettier than others. So what we can do, we can simply duplicate this color and maybe call it secondary color. And maybe we want it more red-ish. Just mix it up a bit. Go and click on initialize particle, and where our color was, we can click this arrow, and Niagara does this really cool thing where it will show you suggested things to kind of guess what you might want, which makes it really easy if you don't want to, navigate through all of these menus, because it's unbelievable in a great way. But for what I'm going to do here, we just want 2 different ranges of color, so we can click on random range linear color. So it will get rid of what we had before, but we can very quickly drag and drop our colors in. And now if we can see it here, it might be a little hard to see. We could just go back to the level, mess with our colors. So we can make it like super obvious, or maybe there's like purple in there. Oh my God, it's so pretty. So we can mess with that. And what's going on here is we're kind of losing some of our shape, and we have our petals moving pretty great, but there's none over here and there's none over here. This is very simple to fix. Go back to Niagara, and in shape location, it is a sphere. Spheres are great. However, I'm more of a box guy. Oh God, messing with a box like a cube is a lot easier. So just for simplicity's sake, this is your XYZ. If you don't know that, blue is the green is the Y, and red is the X. So very quickly, we can scale this up to maybe 500, back, and all of a sudden this reaches out quite a bit more. Now, like before, we don't need to keep jumping back between these things. We can type in vector. This will give you 3 values, so we can mess with RGB with 1 input. We're just going to call this box size, and for now we'll make this 500 by 500 by 500. We're going to drag and drop this on box size, so we can select our petals and be like, it needs to be a lot more in the X and Y, so let's do 1,000. That's a lot more like it. Let's even do it on the Z's so it spawns a lot higher. Now would you look at that? We got a beautiful petals going on. Now compared to the player, they're a little big, so very simply we can scale these down, and you'll never guess how we can do that. Spoiler alert, it involves this. Click on initialize particle, and where it says sprite size mode random uniform, this is just scaling it by a multiplier of 4 and 8, but we can have more control by doing random non-uniform. So what we can have going on here, and type in vector, and instead of a regular vector, which is 3 values, we can do a vector 2D, which is only 2 values, which is exactly what we want. Let's call this size_random minimum, and let's do 2 and 5. Gives us a decent little bit of variation, and we can duplicate this instead of minimum, call it max. And I'm going to make this 8, and let's do 7. And throw that into the max and click save. So immediately, some are a lot more thin than others. You can go crazier than this, or we can go even bigger, something like 250. And now your engineer is gonna love you, so don't look away. That's kind of all I got for you, and things look great. If you're curious, this will loop forever, and it does take some time to warm up just for what we're doing. There are ways to make that faster. Very quick way to do that, where it says emitter update, and click this plus, and this gives you spawn options. And what we can do here very quickly, left click on spawn burst instantaneous, and if you can read, that means it's gonna spawn immediately. Let's do 50, because why not? So instead of this like warming up, it's gonna pretty much immediately have a bunch spawn, and then they'll spawn over time. So it's kind of like a cheap way of making things look good faster. We can even mess with this aerodynamic drag if you want things to move even faster with the wind. If you want them to rotate slower, do 0.5 and maybe just 2 for maximum wind force. This is where you can scale how fast things are going. Feel free to mess with the shape. Gravity is a cool one. We can click this drop down and type in random range vector. If you see random range vector, feel free to mess with it, because it's going to do some cool stuff. So by default, gravity is going to be a -980, and I'm just going to very quickly do a cheap -2000 just for some variation. So we got things like going down immediately. We're in a nice little flower storm. So that's pretty much it. VFX really isn't that hard. It's just knowing where to look. So any questions, let me know. But feel free to look inside of the pluses here and do anything common. That's a great one to look at. Feel free to mess with these, or mess with your lifetime if you want. So this will exist for 15 seconds or 12 seconds. You can mess with like the random rotation. So yeah, feel free to mess with things. It's great. You can plug in any texture you want. If you want your own color, let's say you go into Krita or Photoshop and you want a very specific color, you can totally do that and plug that into emissive color. You'll have a little bit less control, because this initialized particle color is kind of just a uniform color, where it's just using that value of the color and overlaying it over your emissive texture, your emissive color here. So it won't look as clean. That's if you have like super specific petals, but this gives you a bunch more control. Mess with things, you'll be fine. And seriously, by default, Niagara system blowing particles, throw this in, make it pink, click save, always click save. And like, that's kind of it. And then it's just knowing where to look after that. So you'll be fine. You'll do great. I believe in you.